This superfood has been around for thousands of years, so why are experts only now calling this fruit the crop of the future? Stay tuned to find out.
For 5 years तो लगी, लेकिन पैसा बहुत ज़्यादा रिटर्न करी, गन्ना से ज़्यादा करी। हाँ, जैसे भी एक पेड़ में हार्वेस्ट करेगा, इसमें क्लोज टू तुम्हारा $100 देगी एक दफे में, एक हार्वेस्ट में।
Meet Prakash Chand, a seasoned farmer from Johnson Road, Drasa in Lautoka. Prakash has been farming for decades, starting out with sugarcane, then eventually learning his way through intercropping short and medium-term crops, fruit trees, starting out his own nursery with the help of Mr. Sant Kumar, and finally his very own breadfruit orchard, and that too on rejuvenated soil. But before we get to know more about Prakash and his food forest, let's continue our chat with our climate change expert Dr. Andrew McGregor regarding climate change and food security in Fiji with its impacts and opportunities.
The final message that comes out of all this, that agriculture has to be climate, environmentally and economically smart. It has to be all of those things. And it has to happen now, and it has to happen for the future. It's not something we can just kick down the road. We can't delay this. And the more we go about unsustainable practices, the more difficult it's going to be to adjust to climate change impacts, which are becoming more and more severe. So let's do this now. And this is something we can do ourselves. We don't need to wait for the global community, people to stop their emissions. Okay, we do a little bit there, but we're a small country. This is something we can do.
On our previous episode, we spoke about the rise in extreme temperatures and cyclones in its relation to impacts. Sant Kumar even showed us how to protect our seedlings during these extreme temperatures. But fortunately for us here in the Pacific, it's not all bad. We have the capability to capitalize on the comparative advantages and start looking towards sustainable crops such as breadfruit. Dr. McGregor introduced us to Prakash, a farmer from Lautoka who now specializes in fruit trees, his nursery and breadfruit farming.
इसलिए पेड़ ये जो मार्केटिंग वाला पेड़ है ना,
हाँ?
तो ये जो सकस मारी से वाला नहीं है। तो हम पेड़ में यहाँ पे थोड़ा दूर छील के तो हम उसे बांधता है। तो वहाँ से रूट जब मारे तो हम लाके उसमें बोता है। तब जाके रूट्स मार दे, तब फिर इसके 2 महीना यहाँ रही और 2 महीना उसमें पेड़ में रही। तो उसके बाद में काट के तला यहाँ बोल देगा, ना? अब ये बीरा पेड़ चल पड़ी सीधा यहीं से। अब इससे खेत में जाके बोल दे।
तो ईला सिस्टम थोड़ा और अच्छा है।
ईला अच्छा है, ईला फास्ट है।
ओके।
मार्केटिंग लाउड फास्ट है।
और दूसरा सिस्टम कौन सी है?
दूसरा सिस्टम रूट सकस है।
रूट सकस
है तो साथ देर लगी ना, तो ये जल्दी से फ्रूटिंग हो लगी।
ओके।
इतनी आज में स्टार्ट कर दी फ्रूटिंग। और वो रात लगे से 4 years लगी। 4-5 years लगी।
अच्छा है।
तो ये फास्ट है ना।
Prakash has managed to rejuvenate his land and now has quite an impressive vegetable, fruit tree, sugarcane and breadfruit farm. He also practices drum planting and encourages others to do the same if they are lacking space in their backyards. Here, in these drums, he's planted some yams.
आदमी लोग के पास जब जगह जमीन नहीं रहे तब तक आप बैकयार्ड गार्डनिंग उससे अपन ड्रम रख के इसके बोए लेना ऐसा। तभी कम से हम बोया तो खाली सैंपल है ना, वैसे तक ग्राउंड करे। लेकिन इसकी हम सकता बताया कि यदि पास जगह जमीन नहीं है तो कंपाउंड कितना ड्रम रख के तो ऐसे बोए लेना। तो और उसमें अब 10 से 20 kg तक एक में रही।
और हम सुना आपके फार्म इतना अच्छा लगे देखे मैं कि इला मिट्टी पहले उतना अच्छा नहीं रहा। ये लाल मिट्टी ना, और उसमें बोले बहुत एसिड रहे।
बहुत एसिड है, तो हम चिकन मनीवा से छोड़ा ना, तब जाके टाइट है ना खेत।
कितना दिन तक आप अपन फार्म के फर्टिलाइज करा तब जाके थोड़ा ऐसे
लगभग 3-4 months लगे ना। 3-4 months तुम इसके ना जोते 1 बार 2 बार देखो ना 3 बार, तब जाके तुम्हारा खेत अच्छा से बन जी ना।
राइट। तो आप तो गया पूरा शुगर केन फार्मिंग से आप बन गया।
तो उसमें बहुत पैसा नहीं रहा, बहुत इनकम नहीं रहा ना। तो थोड़ा सा गन्ना होता रहा ना, तो फिर हम इसमें उतरा फिर ना वेजिटेबल्स में।
A third-generation sugarcane farmer, Prakash soon realized that it wasn't bringing in as much money as he had hoped and was, in fact, degrading his once fertile soil.
You can see behind me that this has become a normal practice now for cane farmers to burn the cane to get rid of the trash before harvesting, whether they use manual labor or now it's become a common practice that after burning the cane and they use the mechanical harvester to harvest the cane from the cane belt area. By doing this, they're causing more adverse effects on soil fertility level. You see, the heat from the burning the cane, it also destroys a whole lot of microbes in the soil, and it not only that, it removes all the mulch and the compost that the soil needed to support life. And now, by most farmers doing this practice without realizing, they have applied so many commercial chemical fertilizers over the years, and by doing this practice, they're adding to more devastation effect to the soil. As we can see with this podcast, he has gone away from this practice, and listening to his story, within that short year period, he's done quite well with his soil fertility level and what he's producing right now. And it's a challenge for every one of us, so we can adapt this method and help save our environment as well.
Now, Dr. McGregor, when it comes to sugarcane farm crops and farmers and farms, we're not discouraging people, right?
No, sugar is going to have an important role in the Fijian economy well into the future. But we have to grow it sustainably, and this is not doing anything new. It's a matter of what we call going back to the future. Traditionally, we used to grow vetiver grass, we used to grow macuna beans, part of the cropping system, intercropping. We have to get away from the old monoculture where we're depleting the soils, they're running down because of burning, and it becomes harder and harder, and those soils are going to be more and more difficult to rehabilitate. So it's a matter of getting that balance right. Yeah. So even for sugarcane farmers, we need to go back to what we were doing previously and doing extremely well. A lot of things like vetiver grass, they were originated in Fiji many, many years ago, and so we need to do it again, and we're starting to do that. But if we're going to adopt to this changing situation, climate change, declining soil fertility, we have to do it now. We have to do it very quickly, or we're in trouble, both environmentally and financially in terms of farmers. Yeah.
Coming up next, Prakash tells us how he practices intercropping during off-season.
Now from this to this. This is the start of Prakash's food forest. Let's go speak to Prakash about how he's managed to start this, all the way from being a sugarcane farmer, which he's still growing, by the way. But Prakash, आप हमें बताओ कि अपन food forest आप कैसे start करा, कौन सी यहाँ पे बोया?
जैसे यहाँ पे जो अमड़ा के पेड़ है, अमरूद के है, जैसे ना कद्दू है, तो इस फार्म में बोआ है ना। तो हमारे जैसे स्टार्टअप है ना, जैसे ये हमें नेचर से सब पेड़ जितना पेड़ है सब नेचर से दिया हुआ है ना। तब अभी थ्रेड दिया हो गया, ये फोर्थ दिया जावे, अब इससे स्टार्ट हुई फ्रूटिंग हो गई, तो इसके हम प्रूनिंग करके तब इसके रखता है ना, काट के तब पेड़ छोटा रही जैसे ना, तो तुम्हें तोड़े के लिए सहज पड़ी।
While waiting to harvest his long-term crops, Prakash practices intercropping with short and medium-term crops such as pineapple and tomatoes, and his irrigation system is ready to go for anything he chooses to plant.
पेड़ के बीच में हम इंटरक्रॉपिंग करते रहता है ना,
Okay.
क्रॉप चेंज करते रहता हूँ ना, जैसे बीच में ना, तब इरिगेशन सिस्टम सब है। मिक्स क्रॉपिंग में जैसे फ्रूट्स लो था देर में फरी ना, ये लो था 3 मंथ्स में तुम निकलते रहेगा, तब उधर फ्रूट्स फरे लगी ना, तब उसमें काफी फायदा है, तब उतना समय के बीच में तुम सकता काफी चीज निकाल।
We then made our way further up to see Prakash's impressive food oasis and his breadfruit orchard, which he intercropped with pineapples.
Okay, so I finally made it up the hill. A little bit out of breath, but you know, that's okay. It's worth it because I get to see these. These are pineapples. I haven't actually seen one growing. So this to me is quite stunning. But Prakash, आप मैं बताओ आप ये कौन सी करा, ये भी मिक्स क्रॉपिंग है?
हाँ, ये भी इंटरक्रॉपिंग, ब्रेडफ्रूट के बीच में जहाँ स्पेस छुटा रहे ना, तो उसमें हम पाइनएप्पल बोलते हैं ना, तो तुम्हारा जगह वेस्ट नहीं हुई ना कुछ बीच में तुम्हारा हुई ना ज़मीन कैसे वेस्ट नहीं करो ना खाली नहीं छोड़ो ना तो बीच में इंटरक्रॉपिंग कर तो पाइनएप्पल हुई है तो अच्छा ना और भी सस्ता मैं पीनट भी सस्ता बोल दे ऐसे बीच में ना ऐसे इंटरक्रॉपिंग सस्ता करे ना
और फिर आप बोला ये प्लांटिंग मटेरियल भी यूज करेगा उधर
हाँ फिर उधर यूज करेगा
तो इजी है ना
उसके बगल में टमाटर भी सके बोल देना अल्लाह तो स्पेस है ना उसके बीच में सके टमाटर बोल देख लाइन ना तो शॉर्ट टाइम क्रॉप है जल्दी से निकाल लेगा
Beauty about pineapples is they really grow reasonably well in acid sulfide soils, and these soils are particularly acid, run down over decades. So it gives you it's a crop you can get into pretty quickly. Well, you don't have to do too much in terms of regeneration. You know, you want to regenerate the soil, but you can move quickly. But with pineapples, to really make money, and you have to be commercially viable, you have to try and spread your production. Trouble is, pineapples all come on the market at one time, the price goes down, you don't make too much money. So we need to incorporate systems that enables not necessarily year-round production, but spreading the season. And there are production systems, growing systems, how you grow them, and there are a number of products that help in doing that to either suppress flowering during the peak season and to induce flowering in the off season. And maybe you can discuss a little bit of those products, but they certainly are available.
And who better to tell us about these products than fertilizer and chemicals expert Manda from ECHEM.
Just to add on what Dr. McGregor said, that we have products like pineapple spray. It's a growth regulator for pineapples, which helps produce pineapple in the off-season, which is where the money is. I mean, if you want to really be more profitable growing pineapple, especially producing in the off-season. So there are pineapple spray, which is a growth regulator for pineapple, which can be used by a pineapple farmer to produce pineapple during the off-season.
So all year round, almost.
Yes, that's where the money, the price is during the off-season. And if you can do that with the help of the products that we have, it's a win-win situation for a farmer. We have pineapple spray, borax, and urea. There's a formula that I will be able to give to the farmer to use on his pineapple crops to be able to produce pineapple during the off-season. And it's not hard, it's very simple. But the products are there and farmers can use them.
Now you may have noticed that these pineapples have been planted in between breadfruit trees. Now this is one of the bigger things that Prakash is doing here at his food forest. So Prakash, tell me about your breadfruit orchard. इतना बड़ा से आप करा है?
जी, पहले तो यहाँ गन्ना खेती रहा सब ना, तब इसे गन्ना सब राइट ऑफ करके तब फिर हम फ्रूट ट्रीज लोग बोया ना, तो इसमें हमारा ज़्यादा फायदा है। तो गन्ना में से यहाँ पे गन्ना होता तो उतना गन्ना होत नहीं रहा, तब इसमें मट्टी वहाँ बहुत कमजोर है ना, तब इसमें हम बेलफ्रूट बो दिया, तब ये हम तो वहाँ पेड़ सब राइट आगे चल के ही बहुत भारी पैसा हमारे टेन करिएगा, लगभग 10 डजन तुम्हारे एक पेड़ में रही ना, 10 डजन रही एक पेड़ में। तो वो गन्ना से ज़्यादा पैसा है, थोड़ा लॉन्ग टाइम में पैसा आवे लेकिन ढेर पैसा ही ना, और गन्ना में कम थी यही, और गन्ना में बहुत ज़्यादा काम है ना, इससे वंश तुम बोल देगा फिर तुम कईयों जनरेशन सकता इसके तुरते रहे ना।
और हम देखा इसके हाइट काफी आप मेंटेन करके रखा ना, तो कितना दूर ले मांगो जाओ बिफोर आप
इसके मांगे 7 फीट मांगे जम्मू पर से काट देना, हाँ प्रूनिंग करते हैं, तभी थोड़ा बड़ा होगी सही, फूटिंग के बाद में तो हम इसके फिर छोटा रखेगा ना, हाँ चॉप के तोड़े के लिए इजी रहेगा, आप मांगो हाथ से तोड़ लो,
बिकॉज ऊपर से जब
गिरे तो डैमेज हो जाए, कोई भी चीज़ ऊपर से गिरा तो डैमेज है, नारियल भी गिरे तो डैमेज हो जाए ना, तो फ्रूट स्मार्ट डैमेज नहीं होगी, ऐसे है ना, मिट्टी बहुत कमजोर है ना, इसे बहुत खराब मिट्टी है ना, तभी उसमें काम मसाला थोड़ा भी थोड़ा है भाई, तो बरखा में छोड़ेगा तभी पेड़ जाके टिक कर लेंगे।
So Prakash is saying that right now he has the soil here is very weak, or it's not the right type of soil for these kind of trees. So he's fertilized it for now, and he's just waiting for a while before the fertilizer kicks in, and then his soil becomes a lot healthier for these trees to start growing.
Prakash's son and only helper in the farm says there is a lot of money to be made from the breadfruit export market.
I just supply to the exporters But before that, I was supplying to the local market,
Yeah.
and they were giving me for about $4 a dozen, but it was not worth it for me. Then the exporters came, they were giving me $10 a dozen. Then I went to them.
So right now that's what you're working
Yeah,
with is
then
$10
I'm-
a dozen.
Yeah, then I'm working with them now.
Coming up next, we find out why breadfruit is the wonder crop of the future. Today we're visiting Farmer Prakash's stunning food forest in Lautoka. Prakash has become quite the model farmer with the way he's done his whole farm and rejuvenated his unusable soil. Wanting to be a more sustainable farmer, Prakash got into breadfruit farming through the help of Nature's Way Cooperative, who provided him with planting materials for his breadfruit orchard. And to tell us more about this, Levi Tora is a commercial breadfruit farmer by profession with over 10 years experience in commercial tropical fruit production on his own land in the Sambeto Valley in Nandi. Levi has extensive experience designing training programs to integrate rural youth in development projects in Fiji and Vanuatu. Levi was the activity manager of ACIAR Fiji Breadfruit Project, where he led value chain analysis and training for farmers and exporters. He is also currently serving as the chairman of the board for Nature's Way Cooperative. Levi spoke to us about why and how breadfruit is so important.
Breadfruit has a lot of advantages, and if you connect it to climate change, it's one of the best crops the scientists are promoting to be a carbon sequencer because of the leaves, the makeup of the leaves. If you have a look at the leaves, they have a very big broad leaf span opposed to other tree crops. So in terms of carbon sequences, breadfruit is one of the crops that are promoting. And then we are trying to promote food security too as well. As you know, breadfruit is one of those trees that you just have to plant once, it'll be there for 2-3 generations. And before, back in the day, breadfruit was never planted as a crop. It's always been in the wild, and the people have been harvesting it for centuries. What we have come to in this point in time is we are domesticating this traditional tree crop into an orchard-based crop. The whole big idea is to try to diversify farmers into crops of the future, and one of them we believe is breadfruit. What we want to do is have more farmers like this who can basically provide a processor who can convert all this breadfruit into flour. As you know, the price of flour and grains, mainly wheat and rice, will increase in the future due to climate change. And one way to offset that in the Pacific is to start focusing on our traditional crops. And one very important crop that we have in abundance and around us is breadfruit. So the idea is to generate more breadfruit farmers, come to a point where you have that critical mass, and once you have critical mass, you can convert that into breadfruit flour, which can have more sustainability in the future.
The team and I then flew over to the beautiful Taviuni courtesy of Fiji Link to visit the Food Development Unit at Tutu Rural Training Center, which you may remember from our first season, to learn about value-adding breadfruit.
Welcome to the Food Development Unit. Ina ito sa Barotain, ina bulan Karabingo. Ito na walua, ito Reda, ni Marui ina na kakana na buata, bawal ito na matenya na proses ta ina uto. Na wingauna ta ina lang lama, ya lami ina na une na raihaso. Gawin ta na walua, ito Reda, ni Marui ina na kakana. Erin taray bida batana yang baik, nanti dia ni ina tu na uto. Amai marroy baan sarita bisa tunggu untuk mama matatai tewi taman raya ngune at misina ginisina mama derna marroy guna kristin sila tibatna marroy rintara donai bai may ba sa tunawachi ruwa si tunamba na enamaru kinokto sa ngabanto na kindoleng kanokto sabi ngaw na ya kami ina daw singa ito sa ngabanto nila yung inabikaka ng ko may ba anabunji dorita labunji chips nauto chips mandang tala chips awaing na spices ratunggo na cinnamon powder na ginger powder may hada na saijan na cinnamon leaves ito na abkid na process kaya na enamaroy na kakana nauto mulis tali nauto ngauna na ito na pong tatain nauto gonong sabong tatain na nauto pamamaka siya na misi ninito uto hanggang na flour nabato may breadfruit flour $20 na kilo $5 na kilo.
These things are amazing. I've always been so fascinated with breadfruits.
Yep.
But you know, how do we change the mindset of farmers that are so used to of farming one type of crop?
Yep.
And now, you know, we're trying to encourage them or educate them about sustainable crops. How do we change that mindset?
Well, it takes people like Prakash, yeah? Because for us farmers, seeing is believing. And it's taken like 7-8 years for us to get to this point. And now we're able to bring farmers here, expose them to what Prakash has done. And Prakash can give him some of the, the benefits in diversifying into this kind of sustainable commercial farming. And I think that's when you can change the mindset, eh? Because if you even go to the agricultural colleges, if you read the books, you can Google anything about breadfruit. There's a big difference when you follow the theoretical route opposed to coming to an actual farm and talking to the farmers who are well versed with the topic. Eh?
Yeah.
And the good thing with talking with farmers, they'll give you all the good news and the bad news. Yeah, they'll give you all the pros and cons about it, their own personal experience. Eh? And they'll give you all the good information that you need. And the good thing about it is there's a lot of science to back up all this work that we're doing. It all started off doing a lot of literature survey, talking to scientists all over the world, and trying to come up tailoring at this own system to fit our conditions here in Fiji. So it's not just about hearsay. Yeah? It's actually backed by science, all this work that we're doing.
Yeah.
And that's the most fascinating part. Research has taken the lead in all the work that we've been doing. And now it's translated to the farm, and actually translated to the farmer making money. And now we can show everybody that investing in breadfruit commercial production is an option going into the future, not only for climate change, but also as a livelihood. Eh?
Yeah.
And we want to encourage a lot of farmers to come and visit this farm, just to see what he's doing and see where they can some of the issues that he's facing, and then they'll be able to translate it on their own farms. Eh? One of the big issues we faced when we started off this project was the planting material. Eh? We still have a lack of good quality planting material. And I was talking about the two varieties that we are trying to invest in. These two varieties are mainly grown in Vonolevu. This is sort of like the hot spots for Mbalekana and Utondila. And we've been able to bring it here to the cane belt, and it's acclimatized to these conditions, but it comes with its challenges as well. Eh? You have to invest in fertilizing, you have to invest in irrigation, and then you'll get a crop like this. So I think the best way to change the mindset of farmers who are wanting to diversify is to actually come to farms like these and let the farmer talk to you himself, and you get a better feel of the whole idea. And plus you have then you'll probably make a better informed decision, eh? Because you can read about it, you can talk to other scientists, you can talk to other people who are doing it, talk to the farmers, and then you make an informed decision, whether you think it's a good way to go or not. To bringing people here, we're actually not encouraging people to grow all these crops. This is just sort of like a library of information, and the farmer themselves, they make the call. They make the decision whether to invest in breadfruit or not. The last thing we want is farmers investing in breadfruit commercial production, and then he hits a roadblock in terms of pest and disease, and then he comes back to us and tells us, you didn't tell us about pest and disease. So that's why we want you to come, talk to the farmer, see some of the issues at hand. The fruit fly issue, big issue for us. You'll see a lot of the fruits, they'll be just nearing maturity and they'll drop. And the farmer's asking, hey, what's wrong with our breadfruit? So apart from fertility, we've also got a big fruit fly issue. So these are some of the things that you should know before you venture into a crop such as breadfruit. And the big picture is getting this breadfruit connected to a processor who can convert this breadfruit into flour. And that'll offset the input of or the importation of flour in the future. As you know, climate change is going to play a big role to do with crops, especially with grain crops, rice and wheat. Just 1 degree change in the temperature will basically we'll expect an increase in egg inputs, and increase in egg inputs will mean an increase in the price of flour and rice as well. And we know for a fact that a lot of this rice and wheat, the people that grow it, Vietnam, Malaysia and all these other places, we know for a fact that 60% of what they grow is consumed locally for them. Only 40% is traded internationally. So for us in the future, these are the things that are going to count, trying to offset the importation of flour and rice. So breadfruit, I think, is one of the crops that we should focus on, and Prakash and his expertise is a good learning tool for everybody in the future.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
इतना ये करा हम और लड़का खा ली ना, तो हम सवेरे 5 o'clock हम सवेरे जग जाता है, 5 o'clock जग बाद संजा तक कोई 9 o'clock हो जाए, तब 9 o'clock हम नर्सरी में रहेगा ना, तब ऐसे तुम्हें टाइम बनाई पड़ी ना, वॉकिंग टाइम बनाई पड़ी ना, किसी से करेगा ना, तब तुम कर पाएगा ना, और तुम सोचेगा आज के काम बिहान हुई तो बिहान नहीं हुई ना, आज के काम तुम आज कर दो.
On our next episode, we're flying back out to Taveuni to learn how the team at Tutu make their tea. And we don't mean your average afternoon cuppa. We're learning about the process of compost tea and how essential this tea could be for your soil health. We'll see you next week. If you're interested in purchasing any of the mentioned products, you can visit the following EggChem distributors. Contact EggChem Limited on the following numbers. You could even visit in person. They're located on Wailander Road in Lamy.